So there seems to be a little bit of backlash regarding Black Myth Wukong and the fact that the game did not win Game of the Year over at the Game Awards. And a lot of that backlash is sparking from the fact that Feng, the actual producer over at Black Myth Wukong, has decided to make some comments over on Weibo, which is a social media app that they use over there in China. They decided to make this comment about how he feels essentially that he got robbed. And while I don't disagree with him, I think the method that he's going about in order to enact this particular melty melt that he's having is not exactly very good.
Lastly, I want to say this. Our game isn't hard at all. It's perfect for players new to action games. Trust me on this. Thank you.
Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the Game Awards, and I don't know if China is well aware of this, maybe it's a difference in culture, maybe they don't understand the kind of activist, circle that they stepped in when it comes to the Game Awards, but this is not something that's given based off merit. The Game of the Year is usually not something given based off merit. What's given based off merit is the Player Choice Award, which, his game did win, right? Just for all intents and purposes, the players decided that Black Myth Wukong was the game that deserved to win Player Choice. But of course, everybody wanted Black Myth Wukong to win Game of the Year, and we need to learn and understand by now that the Game Awards is not that kind of a showcase. Now, with that being said, he decided to have a little bit of an angry discussion over on Weibo, which a lot of people are taking as him being arrogant, him being a little bit cocky, and him thinking that he had this thing in the bag. And I gotta agree with them to some extent that was probably a bad idea for a multitude of reasons. So let's get into this article, guys, from Game Rant. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, I want to make it very clear. Black Myth Wukong absolutely should have won Game of the Year. The amount of content that this game provides you for the sole single price of entry is absolutely insane. And then on top of that, the amount of hidden content and hidden bosses. The game has about 107 bosses, if I'm not mistaken. It's insane what you get. And then on top of that, too, the gameplay is fantastic. The story element is interesting and enticing. And then on top of that, too, every single chapter, in between the chapter, you get provided a 10 to 20 minute freaking anime episode or a cutscene that showcases everything. It pulls it all together, everything that you experienced in the chapter before. I mean, it is a well put together product, the likes of which we haven't seen in a little bit, in a little while now. So I do believe that Black Myth Wukong deserved to win Game of the Year. I definitely don't believe Astrobot deserved to win Game of the Year. I understand Astrobot's a lot of fun. I know people like it, and I'm sure the Sony, soy boys out there are absolutely cheering right now because it was a Sony sweep, right? I'm sure they're having a grand old time right now, and they genuinely think they won based off their merit. I think that's the hilarious thing about it all. But the reason why I think Astrobot won is because, quite frankly, it was the safest bet out of every single Game of the Year contestant in that category. Black Myth Wukong, obviously you can't give gamers what they want, so you're not going to do that. It's not a show for gamers. Then on top of that, Metaphor Refantasio. Obviously, it's an Eastern game. They don't necessarily want to give it to that if they can avoid it. Then on top of that, what else you had? You had Balatro. If you would have given it to Balatro, people would be like, why are you giving it to an indie game? That's ridiculous. So they wanted to avoid that. Even though Balatro won some awards earlier in the show. So, take that for what it's worth. But Game of the Year, no. Game of the Year is a statement category. It's not a category given based off merit. It's which game can give the best statement for the year. And they decided out of all the choices, they can't give it to Elden Ring because DLC backlash, they already knew. They had to give it to Astrobot, or at least that's what they thought anyway. They gave it to Astrobot because Astrobot was an original game, a platformer, and it was just the safest bet. And it was truly, a game that wasn't having any kind of controversy to it whatsoever. So it was very safe. Now, with that being said, all that context being said, let's go over what he actually said. So Black Myth Wukong producer Feng Jin recently commented on the Games of the Year loss, with his comments causing some controversy online. Black Myth Wukong was released earlier this year, earning mostly positive reviews and solidifying itself as one of the year's best-selling games. Black Myth's success was acknowledged at the Game Awards of 2024, where it was nominated for Game of the Year, among other categories. Talking to Weibo, a Chinese social media platform similar to Twitter, Black Myth Wukong produced Feng Ji addressed the game's Game of the Year loss to Astrobot, according to a Google Translate. And I want to make it very clear, too, I think there is a little bit of a translation issue happening here. I don't think we're getting the full context. I don't think we're also getting the full understanding of what he said. But ultimately, I do believe what's being said here is pretty much what he said, right? I'm just saying that sometimes when it comes to Chinese to English, especially when you're using Google Translate, you're not exactly going to get the mannerisms. You're not exactly going to get the understanding completely over what they say. But that's neither here nor there. So let's read what he said. The game nominated this year were all exceptional. But honestly, I still can't figure out what the criteria was for Game of the Year. I feel like I came all the way here for nothing. Feng Ji then acknowledged the frustration some fans have expressed about Black Myth not winning Game of the Year. It's normal to be a little bit angry when you are so confident, but not recognized by others, he said. Apparently, Feng Ji wrote the Game of the Year award acceptance speech for Black Myth Wukong 2 years ago, illustrating how confident he was in the game. Now, if this is true, if he wrote a speech 2 years ago, I gotta admit, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty fucking cocky, okay? Like that's pretty arrogant. Listen, at the end of the day, I understand that he put his heart and soul into his product, and I respect that, okay? You can clearly see it in how well it plays. You can clearly see it in how well it was presented. But I think what it is that the Chinese are really starting to get into the AAA scene. They really haven't really been in the AAA scene for the most part, and now they're finally getting into that AAA scene, and they don't understand how it works here. The AAA scene is fully run by activists, okay? I want to make that very clear. The AAA scene is not based off merit. It's based off the message your game gives. And the message your game gave was it's for the players. And that's not how it works here. This is why you won Player's Choice Award, but you didn't actually win Game of the Year because gamers loved what you gave them, right? We recognized you, but the media and the industry is never going to recognize you. Unless you start putting trans people in your video games, I guarantee if Black Myth Wukong was headed by a trans monkey, chances are you would have won Game of the Year instantly. But the problem is that you gave gamers what they wanted, which was a game featuring an interesting character with a good story and great gameplay that didn't over-monetize them as well. So you gave them everything they wanted, and gamers gave you their money. You guys made an insane amount of money, a disgusting amount of money. It's beautiful to see. But at the end of the day, you're never going to win Game of the Year. You're just not that kind of a game, and you're damn sure, not yet anyway, that kind of a studio. On top of that, you're China, which they hate you. I don't know if you realize that, but there's that. A ChatGPT translated version of the post was shared on the PS5 subreddit, where it has not been received well. Some commenters have criticized Feng Ji's reaction to the Game Awards loss as arrogant, with others labeling him a sore loser. Now it's entirely possible some added context to these comments are being lost in translation, which is important to keep in mind. Regardless, it seems PlayStation gamers are not happy about the way Feng Ji has reacted to Black Myth not winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards. And again, just like I said, chances are there's something being lost in translation that might give it a little bit of a softer approach and not be so aggressive, but ultimately the message is still the same. It seems like he's very angry that he did not win an award that he thought he had in the bag. And I can understand being confident after you completely destroy the competition, because let's be real. Can I be honest for a second? He absolutely deserves to talk a little bit of shit. Okay, there's no doubt about it. Black Myth Wukong sold 10 million copies in just a few days. He absolutely could talk his shit, right? But that doesn't mean that you should be automatically thinking that you're going to win an award that we all know is driven by activists, right? Players, you got to understand, I don't know if China knows this, players do not vote for the most part on this stuff. We are a very small percentage of the overall vote, and the majority of the vote is led by the mainstream gaming industry, which has all the mainstream gaming journalists that are all currently losing their jobs right now. They're not going to vote for Black Myth Wukong, man. Of course not. We all knew that was coming. We all knew the snub was coming. That was obvious. So at the end of the day, man, I think this is a culture shock. Ultimately, I think that the Chinese probably, since it's their first time really getting into AAA, I think they didn't realize what they were really dealing with. I don't think the kind of people that they realized they were dealing with. And, they learned. They learned very quickly. So ultimately, I'm sure he'll get over it. And I'm sure he's just going to want to come back stronger on his next game. And hopefully that's the case, because we got a banger of a first game. And I definitely can't wait to see what else Game Science decides to do. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate if you get to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.